Lynn Herrera writes in, and it may be the overwhelming kind of question of this election, how can John McCain provide more help to middle-class families in the United States?
It's a good question, and I think that as a fiscal conservative, John McCain's answer to our challenges is much more in line with what we really need to improve the middle class than is Barack Obama's. We have a liberal Democratic Congress. I don't say that pejoratively. I say it descriptively. I don't regard liberal as a pejorative term, but I do believe that Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid are classic liberals. They have had a Republican president for the years that they've been in power. He's moderated what they have wanted to do. Here's what I think. I think if Barack Obama is elected president, you're going to see big labor get more power. You're going to see taxes go up. You're going to see trial lawyers have more power. You're going to see all of the things that hurt the middle class happen. John McCain is a traditional fiscal conservative. He's simply going to be better for the middle class. Taxes, tort reforms, big labor, the issues that I think affect the middle class. He won't be able to promise to give away as much as Barack Obama, but the middle class doesn't need giveaways. The middle class needs government to keep less and give them more in terms of their own taxes.
Can you win an election not talking about giveaways?
That's a challenge, and I don't know the answer. Abraham Lincoln one time said that the key to the destruction of a democracy is when the people realize they have access to the treasury by the vote. In other words, they can vote themselves more. And I'm seeing it in Social Security. I'm seeing it in Medicaid, where we all know that we're about to go off a cliff, and yet it's been impossible to reform the system before we drive off it.
Let's shift to a social issue. Al Kravitz writes in saying, I'm a registered Republican, but I'm having difficulty supporting the party this year. I don't understand why the party has taken its position on stem cell research. Even Nancy Reagan supports stem cell research. And we should point out that John McCain actually voted for expanding the stem cell research bill. Why is the Republican Party have a platform position against expanding stem cell research?
I think it's because we have a basic belief that all life is of value, and it's why John McCain didn't have any problem when he answered the question, when does life begin, and Barack Obama did. We just simply have a higher value here. I also believe, as you pointed out, John McCain did vote for broadening the research capability of the federal government. We're spending billions of dollars on stem cell research. It's just on the research that doesn't start from the destruction of what we believe is human life. Finally, science is, I believe, going to make that whole debate immaterial, if not already very soon, because of new advances in terms of research. Understand Mr. Kravitz's concern. John McCain, I think, shares it. It's another example of how he, in fact, is a maverick sometimes with his own party.
John Hoover writes in from Longmont. Recently there was a widely publicized interview where Senator McCain admitted he doesn't know how to use the internet and doesn't bother with email. Do you think a person like that, he writes, is qualified to lead this country as we charge into the digital age?
Absolutely, and I can tell you as a governor, I didn't do too much email on my own. I basically had my assistant help me with it. Sometimes we print it off and I could handwrite faster than I could type. I'm very email literate. I'm very internet literate. But a person in John McCain's position will, especially when you look at how many years he's been in the Senate, will have an assistant help him with that occasionally. It's not what we're picking when we're picking a president. What I want for a president is somebody who's going to defend the United States of America. He's going to know how to deal with Iran, how to deal with Russia. Whether or not he's as literate as you and I are in terms of being able to Google and email, that's pretty far down in my area of priority.
You paid me a compliment I'm not sure I deserve. This election seems to be running on the concept of change. Both parties running on change. And one of the common sentiments you hear from voters is that they're frustrated maybe with the partisanship that's going on in Washington. And Kim Ryan writes in saying she's looking for common ground between the Republicans and the Democrats in this election. Her question is there any? And if so, where do you think the parties can come together?
I think that campaigns, particularly as they're waged today, tend to drive the parties apart and even sometimes mask the areas that the parties agree. I know when I served as governor, I signed hundreds and hundreds of Democratic bills. I worked very well with the Democratic legislature. We would argue and talk about those few areas that we disagreed on during the campaign, but during the normal day in and day out of governance, you find that President Bush actually signs and works with the Democratic majority pretty well. What I'm saying is that it works better than we think, and these campaigns really do drive us apart because the voters react positively to negative ads. You're going to say, well, you won't, but some will say, Bill, you're crazy. And yet the reason why negative ads run, and they're probably bracketing this show, is because they work. And when the voters say no to the candidates who do those negative ads, that's when you're going to start to see positive. So the negative ads which run earlier and earlier really cause, us to think politics is all negative. All of our elected officials are crooks. Actually, having dealt with hundreds of them, almost none are. Liberal, conservative, I think they all want what's best for Colorado. I think that Coloradans would be impressed if they really knew the level of work that goes into self-governance.
We have about a minute left in this segment. Janelle Robinson writes in, there's been a lot of oxygen sucked up by the DNC here in Denver and will be sucked up by the RNC next week. And I've received a number of emails along these lines, but she writes in saying, I think the DNC and the RNC are a waste of money. We already know they're going to be on the ticket. Who's going to be on the ticket for the next election? Why do the politicians deem it necessary to spend taxpayers' money on having conventions in the first place?
Well, I don't think it's just the politicians. I think the conventions actually do something important for the body politic. In a democracy, you have to have an understanding of what's happening. You have to have a time when everybody comes together to make their case. I think the Democratic convention, the Republican convention, are really times when people, for the first time usually, start to look at the two parties. The process of self-governance, of governing this nation of $300 million, is worth the cost of that convention here in Colorado and the one we're about to have in Minneapolis. It provides a focus for the two parties to present themselves to the people.
Former Colorado Governor Bill Owens, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you.
Good to see you.